it's customary in this day of practice together to offer a talk that can kind of orient us to the practice. And hopefully you've been getting a lot of context in the class, understanding the rationale, which can really help us choose to do the practice and bring it into our lives more and more. So that's my intention right now, wanting to offer this short talk, and then we'll move into a practice just to orient us again to why are we doing this? What does it matter? And I hope you're getting the sense that meditation is a really brilliant way of intimately getting to know our patterns and to begin to explore them and befriending them rather than avoiding them, rather than criticizing them, rather than even kind of trying to manage them or wrangle them. We're really offering our patterns something else. And the first step, of course, is the training is to start us being able to pay attention more finely to what our difficulties and suffering is actually made up of. What is this moment of unconfidence or sadness or anger or hopelessness? What is it made of in terms of how I hold my head, the sensations in my gut, the kind of thinking that's going on, the thoughts that are arising in my mind, my expectations of the future? And so the first step is, can I make some space so I can start seeing what this moment of stress, this moment of distress is made up of? And we're doing this in a particular way, in a way that is bringing some gentleness, some kindness, this quality of befriending the mind and body. Quite a different stance than we often take to distress and distress. So it's so important to know that these habituated responses of stress and distress are here for all sorts of reasons. They depend on our constitution, the kind of naturalness of our nervous system that we've inherited from, millennia of parents and grandparents and great-grandparents. These responses, our patterns, are dependent on our parents and how they treated us, especially in the first, 15 years of our life. It kind of matters. And, we didn't choose that, did we? As a baby, we probably came out and went, oh, okay, really? Okay, that's going to be a challenge. Or maybe not. Maybe there was quite good, this is going to be easier. It's dependent on our culture too, the opportunities provided or not to shape us in certain ways, our education. It really, all of those forces really shape what we're going to experience moment by moment by moment. And so these patterns that we might have quite strong judgments about and that we might find quite annoying, and, we come to a mindfulness training to want to sort of feel better and, maybe even to be a better person. Hopefully we're learning that they're not really ours. We don't have to take them so personally, and they belong to all humans and, all mammals in a way. So this is a really good thing to really let land, because so much of our reactivity is part of the natural world. We don't have to take it personally as a flaw or a mistake. It's really just how we're made. And this mindfulness project is really about making a relationship with that little piece of nature so we can hold it, know it, and stop railing against reality, stop railing against nature in a way, and hopefully open up to more space and choice through our awareness. And there's a guy, a psychologist in England called Paul Gilbert, who has offered a beautiful lens with which to really get some clarity about where all this reactivity comes from the perspective of evolutionary biology. And so I'm going to offer his framework, and I'll make sure the teachers can send out a link to you about a beautiful, about 2-hour lecture he offers, which can clarify even further, hopefully. So his framing of our nature is looking at our emotions as our signals. Emotions are our signals, and emotions are our motivators. And they motivate us to move towards and away from things in our environment, in our world. And many creatures have rudimentary emotions in the way we're discussing here, and particularly clear in mammals. But other organisms, they contract, don't like things when they're unpleasant, and they expand, move towards things when they're pleasant. So this is all to help us to survive. And it's so helpful to know that they're biologically based, and every healthy human baby is hardwired to be able to feel these emotional systems and to use them as signals. And we've got this amazing capacity as a very little person to really look out and say, okay, I need to learn this. I need to learn to shape myself in relationship to this environment so I can survive and belong. So it turns out that human beings are motivated in three main ways. The first motivation is to keep ourselves safe, and this is primary. And so you might call this the threat system, and it's for self-protection. So very deeply in our organism, we have a system that generates kind of parts of us that flee, that get afraid and want to take us away from threatening situations, parts of us that want to fight and make stuff happen, set boundaries. That's part of our healthy, natural reactivity. And also parts of us that can be so overwhelmed by the threat when they look around and go, okay, this is really dangerous, that they freeze or go blank. They go dull, they withdraw, they really shut the whole system down. And so this system, this threat system, gives rise quite naturally, organically, to all these emotions that we have: fear, anxiety, terror, irritation, anger, rage, contempt, and also all of the processes of numbing, wanting to be oblivious to things, being dull, avoidance, not wanting to be aware, shutting down. So this is our threat system. It's healthy, it's good, it's doing its best out of what it's learned in the past. No need to be reactive or judge ourselves for it. The second way we're motivated is to get stuff, to make good things happen for ourselves and get the contact we need, the stimulation we need from the environment. So Paul Gilbert calls this the drive system, and it's for resource seeking. It's like looking out into the world and going, okay, what do I need today? And it's for seeking ordinary stuff we need, like food, shelter, sexual contact, connection with other people that's nourishing and stimulating. And we can know this in terms of seeking out ideas, seeking out, getting a sense of, oh, I've got these sort of talents. I want to be able to express them in the world. This is one of the agonies of unemployment, especially for young people, but anyone, like to be in a culture, a society where your natural talents aren't given any space for this drive system to express itself. So painful. If we don't have a playpen for this drive system to express ourselves and go after in a healthy way what we need, and have the culture supporting us, society supporting ourselves to do that, it's very depressing and leads to all sorts of problems. So we have these parts of ourselves that want to try really hard. They want things. They want to make things happen, to achieve, to shape the world, to express our particular talents and interests. And so here we have the emotions that are driving us to do this, of excitement, interest, delight, desire, craving. And when this kind of system gets a bit thwarted, or we don't get what we want, we can lead to kind of serious disappointment, and even judgment about, oh, I didn't make the grade or whatever. I'm going to talk about this a bit later. The third system is about calming down and resting and connecting. And Paul Gilbert calls this the soothing system. And it's very much connected to affiliation. We're mammals. So these are the parts of ourselves that want and need connection and empathy and understanding from our gang, the need for belonging, for soothing from other people, but also inside ourselves. This aspect of ourselves, our soothing system, needs a context in which to drop down, and we need space and time and a lack of threat, a lack of need to be driven all the time, to be able to recuperate from the demands of life, to gather, to join, to be intimate with others and with ourselves. So I'm really encouraging us to get friendly with each of these systems and know in our awareness, in a way, we can hold them all and hopefully make good relationships with these parts of ourselves that are natural, and get a sense of being able to maybe, with presence and wisdom, lead the whole of our system, which involves these motivations that are constantly arising in us. So I just want to speak in a little bit more detail about each of the systems and then move into a practice which really activates the soothing system. And just to frame this up at the beginning, Paul Gilbert is someone whose work, his theoretical work and practical work in the world has been to generate a compassion-focused psychotherapy, because he realised that humans in general, but probably not right now, but that many people who are struggling and suffering with stress and distress have a lot of threat system going on. They have a lot of drive system going on, but they're kind of underactive in the soothing system. And he sees this whole mindfulness meditation practice and process that we're learning is really about, it's a beautiful way to activate the soothing system, the parasympathetic nervous system, and to not only connect with others, but to connect with ourselves in a way that we can start making this empathic, compassionate relationship with ourselves. The drive system, the threat system are both arousal of the sympathetic system to avoid threats and harms and to make stuff happen in the world. And there's a lot of satisfaction in avoiding harms. There's a lot of satisfaction in making stuff happen, being driven. But if we live there all the time, the system's way out of balance. And so often we have a life with way too many demands, too many threats, and we expect to be able to go to bed and have a good night's sleep. Not possible. So in knowing the threat system, and I think this is what John Kabat-Zinn's pointing to when he says, let everything happen in your meditation. Because knowing the threat system, we get to really know the flow of these unpleasant emotions arising, fear and anxiety and anger, jealousy, disgust. And bringing curiosity to them is transforming in and of itself. It's very hard for disgust, contempt, anger to live side by side with this cultivation of curiosity, respectful seeing, befriending attitude. And there's a few problems that come with the threat system. If you are, unfortunately, and this is not our fault, if we're living with a lot of threat in our lives, a kind of calm, complex reflection, perspective taking on things tends to go out the window. And instead, we find ourselves with more rigid, black and white, and very definite ways of thinking. So we can really notice this in our practice, or even over days. Some days when we're really bunkered down with too many demands and we're feeling quite threatened at work or in a relationship, it's just this black and white thinking, this urgent threat system comes to the fore, and it's very hard to offer ourselves empathy or compassion for ourselves or others. And the other problem is that we can start feeling like our very threat responses are a threat. This is tricky, isn't it? So we start feeling anxiety about a presentation at work, and then we start experiencing the very anxiety as a threat. Oh my God, no, I'm a loser. That's pathetic. People are going to see that I'm angry, that I'm sad, that I'm lonely. And this can kind of threaten our sense of self that we feel like we have to be in order to be an acceptable person in the world. So this can lead to more self-attack, which feels threatening to our sense of value and our sense of worth, and keeps the spiral going. You can see how easily we can get into difficult territory with this. So, the drive system. As well as being motivated to avoid harm, we're motivated to find food, shelter, sexual partners, to get on in the world, to make stuff happen, to follow our interests. And this all leads to the feelings and behaviours of seeking and acquiring and getting and consuming and competing. And the emotions associated with this feeling of drive, excitement, that feeling of competency, pleasure, and satisfaction when you've achieved something, very motivating. And like the threat system, these emotions activate or ride on the sympathetic branch of the nervous system. And just bring to mind when you've successfully pursued a goal and achieved it, even like cooking a good meal or winning the attention of someone you care about. We get a sense of dopamine, this powerful hormone which gives us that high that makes us want to do it again. It's very rewarding. And this drive to achieve and attain can be experienced and get a bit addictive actually in many domains of living. Buying a new product or piece of clothing, competing in a race, working hard on a new project, studying to pass an exam and doing it well. We can get a sense of buzz from even anticipating these things. And this leads to a real problem with technology, because what we know now is that even this addiction to phones and contact through social media is like getting that little hit of dopamine, or posting stuff. Oh, I've made an impression on the world. I'm here. I exist. Look at me. And problems can really arise for humans because we have this marvellous capacity of being able to represent our experience, the past and future, in our mental space, in our minds. And when we spend too much time, when we're preoccupied, ruminating and fantasizing about these possibilities of achieving, winning, competing, wanting to be seen as the best, it can really actually dominate our lives to the exclusion of being present to the more subtle, ordinary pleasures of being a body, having a body, resting in awareness for sure. And also to the exclusion of our real social relationships. And being kind of preoccupied or addicted to this kind of high can also lead to a painful relationship with our self-worth. If we get on this addictive spiral, it's kind of, we might develop the need to always be seen as marvellous or the most beautiful or, the smartest, whatever. And when this can't be attained, which is fairly impossible, we can start feeling shame and unworthy. A kind of painful narcissism can arise, which is so natural. It can also really skew our expectations of our partner, our friends, our children, our workmates. As an extension of us, we want them to be the best, to be seen in a certain light as well. We can start being quite reactive to their moments of, not achieving in the way we want to and would want them to. And of course, this drive system can also lead to problems as a society. The need to continuously consume in order to experience joy or satisfaction or feel like a good enough person really plays out in a world of scarce resources, contributing to corruption, destruction of resources, exploitation of others. Certainly some societies exploiting others in order to maintain a standard of living. So it's a big deal. So this drive system can really often conflict with our deep need for connection and communion with others. And yeah, it pays to bring awareness to those impulses, drives, to welcome them, to know them, and also have a relationship with them so they're not kind of driving the bus, huh? So, thirdly, the soothing system. So Paul Gilbert says we're also deeply motivated to find space and time to soothe and be soothed. Human beings are deeply wired for empathy and cooperation. And because we live in social groups, we've evolved to be able to read the feelings of others and to attach to others and to demonstrate reciprocity, mutuality in our dealings with others. And it's so interesting, this practice of mindfulness. It seems like people who cultivate more self-awareness also are high in empathy. So you may have noticed a little change even in the last few weeks, a change in your empathic response with yourself and others through this practice. And I think it's so interesting, Dan Siegel, who's a psychiatrist and mindfulness researcher and theoretician, he thinks that when we're practicing mindfulness with our own moments, our own arisings and passings, our own moments of stress and distress and ease, we're actually activating the social circuitry that gets activated in a child when they're around an empathic parent. So interesting, huh? That through this practice of staying with our difficult moments in this open-hearted way, we are literally changing our brain and cultivating more empathy and compassion for ourselves and then others quite spontaneously. So when animals, including humans, don't have to fend off threats or don't have to do stuff to attain and achieve, a feeling of kind of natural baseline contentment can arise. This is a really important part of practice. And we can often miss it if we're mindlessly driven and mindlessly responding to threats that might just be in our own noggin, right? Might be in the form of thoughts that are just habitual. So this is interesting. We can really start cultivating this capacity for discernment about where we place our attention, how we place our attention. And this feeling of peace and contentment when we're not having to do stuff, when we're not having to fend off threats, is facilitated by an arousal of the parasympathetic nervous system. And it enables us to rest and digest. And this often happens spontaneously when we develop a bit of a mindfulness practice. The two branches of the nervous system do tend to come more into balance quite automatically through these practices that we've been exploring together. And this is a very different kind of pleasurable experience than the one that arises from that competitive and pleasure-seeking drive system. It's the pleasure of slowing down and being present that can often arise in nature. And because of the very stimulating nature of our current world, it's like we have to deliberately access and cultivate this soothing, settled state of being, deliberately foster it. And I really feel this is like a moment in the day to practice your meditation is an active way of saying there's space and time here to be known, to know, to rest, to recuperate. So our mindfulness practice can really help with getting to know these, our system and these drives and motivators in us, and literally to start deliberately, purposefully setting aside time regularly to activate the parasympathetic system, to give over space and time to, in a way, digest. And this is why this mindfulness practice, even this 8-week course we're doing, has this kind of broad effect on a whole range of stuff like anxiety, high blood pressure, gut problems, insomnia, because we're really helping the whole system calm its farm, like really settle down, the more active poles of the nervous system. And we can also deliberately start cultivating friendliness and compassion in our practice. And I'm going to lead us in a practice now to deliberately bring some patience, some friendliness, some compassion to this little patch of nature, which is, me right now. It's such a weird thing, isn't it, to not be in control of what bubbles up moment to moment, but to kind of be responsible for it. It's quite a dilemma. And I think when we first start practicing mindfulness, we can be a bit like, oh, my mind, it's insane. I want to control it. And yeah, this whole approach is more about making a relationship, giving it a big paddock to run around in, and getting to know its nature. And yeah, hopefully you've been having some experience of it automatically kind of calming down when this happens. And this is a big deal, a big part of Buddhist psychology. It's kind of the whole point of mindfulness meditation. It's not really for a small, narrow, I want to feel better. It's actually a big picture of transformation and possibility of real generosity towards ourselves and others, and the healing that can come through this. So some of you will know this little practice, but I want to just invite you to do a physical little embodiment of a couple of states. So let's do, imagine that you're meeting a moment of challenge in the drive system, or let's start with the threat system actually. You're meeting a moment of threat, and natural for threat is to have a kind of defensive stroke aggressive relationship with it. Understandable, natural, not a problem. So I'm just going to invite you to kind of imagine a threat is coming and just put your hands up like that and feel what that's like. And if it's something that you need to deal with, grapple with, maybe make something happen, more drive system, just grab hold of it. Imagining that you are wrangling this, trying to manage it, trying to make something happen, trying to stop it happening. All natural, all good, all really valuable, depending on the threat, right? Or the challenge. But just feel what this is like in your system, having to mobilise like this. And now, very slowly, allowing your hands to come down and rest. So the backs of your hands are resting on your lap and your hands are open. So just imagining the immediate threat, the immediate thing we have to wrangle is past. And we're now able to open to really seeing clearly, being present to what's in our system. holding in awareness, making a relationship with it, feeling into the openness of your palms, receiving the experience of being stressed or distressed. It's one thing to have to meet a demand out there. So often we meet our own experience as if it needs to be pushed away or wrangled, when really, if we make a relationship with it, there's powerful transformation of the experience already unfolding when we bring curiosity, kindness, tenderness. Just feeling that possibility, drawing on your practice so far. Feeling the quality of the relationship you're making. And there's one more movement that we could make in this little experiment, is to place your hands on your body. So this might be moving from the clear seeing of mindfulness, knowing what is happening, to really offering different parts of you, your nervous system, the drive system, the threat system, a felt sense of your presence and care and interest. Just letting your hands rest, maybe on chest and belly or elsewhere. Palpably feeling this quality of making relationship. So, feeling free to organise your body however you'd like to. I'm going to lead a practice of cultivation, of deliberately bringing some qualities to this bundle of system that we are, and with the intention of bringing some more of this soothing system into play. So arranging your posture, your hands, your arms, your head and neck, your legs, in a way that you can just be here as much as you can on this toasty afternoon. And rather than think we're effortfully trying to feel a certain way, maybe imagining this practice as planting seeds, just seeds of intention, gently. No rush for that seed to mature. It'll find its own way with the right water, the right soil, the right sunlight, the right protection. We don't have to make anything happen. And as I lead this practice, it can feel a bit dorky, a bit awkward. You might even start feeling emotions that are the opposite of what I'm inviting, and that's really natural. This is just the nervous system, just this drive, threat system bubbling up, digesting. So just making a big, broad paddock for whatever arises to arise. Allowing yourself to be interested in what the mind does with my invitations. You might feel it quite neutral, you might not really connect, you might reject the invitation, you may be very moved by it, all welcome. Noticing what's helpful and noticing what's not so helpful for you. And feeling free at any point to make connection with your body, with a palm somewhere, heart, belly, head. But for now, just resting your attention in your heart area, and maybe taking a few fuller breaths, feeling the expansion the use of muscles to take in more air and releasing, maybe a bit of a sigh. And first off, inviting a quality of patience to be extended to your whole system that we know has been shaped in all these ways. It's kind of crazy to be impatient with it, given that it's had so many moments and years of being shaped in a certain direction. And we're offering it a little bit of a different playpen now. So offering it patience. All the space and time in the world. Just noticing what that feels like in your system. To be offered all the space and time, not to have to rush, to feel better, to be better somehow. Deep permission to be exactly as you are. Allowing things to unfold gracefully in their own time. Deeply knowing that this moment is emerging out of many conditions, situations, causes from the past, over which mostly we had very little control. So you might want to bring your breath, maybe taking a few deeper breaths, really connecting with offering yourself patience to yourself, your process, to your drive system, to your threat system, to your life. Bringing patience to whatever you're grappling with at the moment. Giving yourself time and space to discover and explore and find out. Noticing and maybe even attending to that automatic sense of reactivity and urgency when we have stress and distress. So natural. Making space for that sense of urgency and maybe softening it, soothing it, opening to this moment, bringing curiosity to what's arising right now when I make this invitation towards patience. You may even wish, if it's right for you, to extend this quality of patience to someone in your life that you feel impatient towards sometimes. Softening your sense of urgency around another person and their annoying habits. Opening to what would happen if you gave them the space and time to unfold. without bringing so much of your own urgency and agenda to the situation. Feeling the possibility of your own release as well as some release for them. And bringing to mind now the quality of friendliness, being a good friend to this system that's you. Bringing, if possible, a sense of gentleness and respect towards yourself. Perhaps imagining this quality of friendliness as a soft rain falling without any effort and permeating your body, permeating your feelings, permeating the mind. Allowing your heart to open to the possibility of making peace with yourself in this moment. Even in the face of difficult times or difficult feelings, difficult challenges. And making space, noticing any restrictions or naysaying parts that arise in the face of this invitation for friendliness, any judgments, any reactions. If possible, bringing acceptance and curiosity to those parts that aren't so sure about this befriending or don't quite know how to do it. They're very welcome. And now, if it's right for you, extending this friendliness, this kind of feeling of hospitality to someone in your life that you feel close to, that you care about. Feeling into what that's like to deliberately bring this gentleness, respect, warmth, loving feeling towards them. Just let that permeate your body, taking some delight. getting that feeling of connection, care, maybe a pet. They're pretty easy to have this spontaneous generosity towards, I find. Humans can be disappointing. Staying present with this invitation to extend friendliness, warmth, your care, your concern to someone that you care about. Noticing what's happening in your whole system as you open in that way. And if it's right for you, extending more widely to people in your community who you may not know very well personally, but their life touches yours. And this has been very much in the foreground for us all, I think, with the COVID thing. People who make you coffee, people who work in shops, people you pass in the street, people who drive buses and trains for us, knowing that they too have a drive system. They're trying to make stuff happen. They have a threat system. They have a soothing system. We're all in the same boat, really offering this quality of friendliness. And just notice what that feels like. Whether it feels pleasant or unpleasant or neutral to connect in this way with some deliberateness towards others. Whether it feels like a strain or whether it feels natural, not a problem. And if it feels right for you, now extending this feeling of friendship, of kinship, to all beings. What's it like to widen our circle of friendship to all beings, humans, animals, plants, and the very earth on which we all depend? It's like we're making our heart bigger and wider, more spacious to hold the whole of the world with some tenderness and kindness and deep generosity. Noticing what it's like for you to extend in this way. There might be judgmental parts coming up, dismissive parts. Letting them know that they too are welcome here, really welcome. Making space for all beings, internal and external. letting yourself have a sense of taking delight in their ease and happiness. And also now opening to the quality of compassion. Compassion arises in us when we open with a really heartfelt sense and resonance to the kind of painful and tender aspects of life in ourselves or other people, other creatures, the planet. It's almost like letting our hearts break in the face of suffering, letting ourselves be moved, touched. A willingness to bear witness, to be touched by the suffering, our own and others. This can open us up to big feelings. Taking some time to notice whether dipping into this compassionate relationship with the world and with yourself to moments of genuine pain and suffering. Just checking out whether that kind of allows a sense of warmth and a sense of connectedness to arise. Whether it helps break down some sense of isolation or not. What's it like to really allow yourself to look at suffering, moments of stress and distress in the face, allowing it, soothing it with this quality of compassion. And I like to draw on a kind of image of it effortlessly radiating out from my heart, me not having to do anything, just this effortless radiating, like out from a sun in the centre of the chest. And opening now to your capacity for equanimity. If we're going to let ourselves be really touched and know deeply our own stress and distress, and really dive into being present for it, examining it, working skillfully with it, and also the pain of the world, we're prepared to know that, let ourselves be moved by it. We really need another wing, which is the wing of equanimity. And equanimity is a quality of even-mindedness, balance, a kind of sustaining presence of mind. A quality of non-reactivity to whatever's arising. Accepting, including everything. Holding the flow of our experience, whether pleasurable or unpleasurable, with a kind of lightness of mind, spaciousness of mind. Really seeing it as a kind of field of play. Equanimity, the cultivation of equanimity really enables us to release striving, to letting go of needing things to be a certain way in any moment. Touching this moment with a spacious and accepting heart. And taking a moment to really notice how this practice of cultivation has kind of landed with you today. Noticing and including your reactions, your responses to it as part of the practice. Nothing needs to be banished. Really welcoming everything in. Wherever you are is the starting point, says one of those wise guys, Kabir. So this is it. This is the perfect starting place. How good is that? And I want to complete this period of practice with one of my favourite poems by Bertolt Brecht called Everything Changes. It really captures the heart of the practice, I think. He was a Marxist, not a Buddhist, but wisdom comes in all shapes and sizes. Doesn't belong to anybody exclusively. Everything changes. You can make a fresh start with your next breath. But what has happened has happened. And the water you've poured into the wine cannot be drained off again. What has happened has happened. And the water you've poured into the wine cannot be drained off again. But everything changes. You can make a fresh start with your next breath. Which is right now. And now. And now. Always available to us.